Hello everyone, welcome back to First Friday Fives here on Go Big Bore or Go Home, where recoil is required. Why? Because we're the house of the rising gun. I'm your host Sean, and I apologize that we are a week late this month. November was a very busy month, and my day job of running Black Ops for the CIA, I said too much. But as it's December of 2022 and I am wrapping up our year, I wanted to again look back at a previous list and ask what, if anything, I would change now that we are 7 years down the road on YouTube. Our very first list on First Friday Fives, the list of the top 5 big bore handgun cartridges. These were the 5 big bore cartridges that were my favorites, so let's start by running down the previous entrants. Number 5, the 10mm Auto. Number 4, the 45 Colt. Number 3, the 454 Casull. Number 2, the 44 Magnum. And number 1, the 45 ACP. After 7 years of shooting absolutely every big bore I can get my hands on, I'll confess that I do have a few changes to make in terms of order and even swapping out a few contenders. I asked myself, if I had to reduce my safe full of big bores to only 5, what cartridges would I want to keep? Some were no-brainers, some I had to think about, and since this is definitely a personalized list, please feel free to share your choices on this. But here are the top 5 big bore cartridges that made my list. Number 5, the 480 Ruger. It probably will surprise many that this is on the list because while I do have a 475 line ball revolver that will shoot this round, I don't currently own a 480 Ruger chambered revolver. I do want a Ruger Alaskan in it though. But this cartridge really is something remarkable, and I felt it just had to be on this list. Hitting the market in 2001 or 2003, depending on the source, this cartridge was something unexpected that ended up being brilliant. The 480 Ruger was designed from the get-go to be a big bore handgun hunting cartridge that would be a big step up from the 44 Magnum without the abusive recoil of the 454 Casull. And it perfectly hit the nail on the head. The 480 Ruger is a 0.476-inch bullet seated in a 1.285-inch long brass case with a max chamber pressure of 48,000 psi. It's essentially a shortened 475 line ball with slightly less pressure, and with that you get immense power and lower recoil. Ammunition will range from 325 grain bullets at 1,350 feet per second to 410 grain bullets at 1,200 feet per second, and reloading can ramp up that power even more if you'd like. It's a very flexible cartridge. What makes this round get on the list for me is that it is ideal when you need a cartridge for defense against large dangerous game or for hunting. All the power you'll probably ever need, and even though it still kicks pretty damn hard, it is not as abusive as the 454 Casull or 475 line ball, and that makes it very shootable and livable day to day. Unlike the big Smith & Wesson Magnum cartridges, it can fit in a practically sized revolver as well, which makes carrying it afield much simpler. The 480 Ruger only made it to number 5 because it isn't as powerful as some other rounds, and it's only currently chambered by Ruger. Ammo is tough to find, and if you're a reloader, bullets for reloading can be tough to find too. But when you need the extra oomph and want a powerful, practical, packable revolver that won't make you regret pulling the trigger, the 480 Ruger really is impossible to beat. Number 4, the 10mm Auto. Moving up one spot, we have what I think of as the semi-auto equivalent of a 357 Magnum revolver. I know some will say it's like a 41 Magnum or even delusionally like a 44 Magnum, but when we look at muzzle energy, the 10mm is closest to the 357 Magnum. But why I draw the comparison has more to do with the abilities of the venerable 357 rather than its muzzle energy numbers. The 10mm Auto will shoot a 0.400-inch bullet ranging from 135 grains at 1,600 feet per second to 220 grains at 1,200 feet per second. It utilizes a straight-walled brass casing that is 0.992 inches long and has a max chamber pressure of 37,500 psi. It is one spicy meatball. And while it has almost disappeared into the forgotten cartridge afterlife, it is seeing a serious resurgence. The reason for that is also the reason why it's one of my all-time favorite big bore handgun cartridges. While the 357 Magnum did outstep the Big Ten in a versus competition we did, it was never far behind at any point. That's because, like the 357 Magnum, the 10mm is very versatile. The 10 can use light bullets going fast or heavy for caliber bullets at a still very quick pace. And that power can be dialed in for so many different purposes. The 10mm can be useful for self-defense, woods defense, hunting, or even plain old target shooting due to its flat trajectory. There really is very little you can't do, and do well I might add, with a good 10mm pistol by dialing in the ammo for your specific needs. Not many semi-auto rounds can make that claim. The 10mm is not perfect though. While I feel the general consensus about its egregious recoil are very overblown, there's no denying it can give you quite the palm beating, especially if you're loading hot. The guns are less common and take more wear and tear. The ammo is harder to find and noticeably more expensive. but with the kind of versatility and power the 10mm brings to the table, I can't help but love it. Number 3. The 500 JRH. Here's a cartridge that I was very vaguely aware of when I started this channel 7 years ago. I went from somewhat skeptical back then to now being a huge fan. The 500 JRH is the brainchild of a gunsmith and custom gunmaker by the name of Jack R. Huntington. The idea was to create a 50 caliber cartridge that could fit in a Freedom Arms Model 83 without having to modify the cylinder and cylinder window in the frame. The 500 line ball's rim being large required these modifications. While Jack had started designing this round back in the 1990s, it hit the market in 2004. It is essentially a shorter version of the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, shooting a .500 inch bullet from a 1.4 inch brass case with a max chamber pressure of 45,000 psi. The case's rim is also much smaller for the aforementioned reasons. The round will shoot a 350 grain bullet at 1,500 feet per second up to a 440 grain bullet at 1,325 feet per second. If you want a cartridge that can do anything, this is definitely that round. There are several reasons why this cartridge is now on my list of best big bore handgun cartridges. First and foremost is the absolute packability of such a massive powerhouse. My Magnum Research BFR and 500 JRH sports a 5.5 inch barrel and weighs in at roughly 3¼ pounds, or 52 ounces. It's just slightly bigger than your average Ruger Super Blackhawk. It also has reasonable recoil for its output thanks to its pressure ceiling being pretty low and the shorter case length keeping powder charges well below the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. I can actually get back on target in reasonable time with this round. And the 0.500 inch bullets are remarkably easy to find for us reloaders thanks to the popularity of the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. When it comes down to it, I feel like this is the perfect 50 caliber handgun round. That said, it has some massive challenges. Revolvers are either BFRs or custom made, and only Buffalo Bore currently makes ammo or even sells the brass, both of which are painfully expensive. And like any 50 caliber handgun round, it is a handful to control and be accurate with. But for me, it's all the power I could ever need and highlights why a 50 caliber revolver is truly awesome. Number 2, the 44 Magnum. The 44 Magnum came in second place last time, and I very nearly gave it the first place spot this time. While I've been happy to discuss some of the 44 Magnum's shortcomings, there is just no denying how great this round really is. When the first Smith & Wesson revolvers in this round hit the market in 1956, no one had ever seen anything quite like it. Here was this large-frame double-action revolver that was shooting 0.429-inch bullets from a 1.285-inch brass case with a maximum pressure of 36,000 psi that generated more power than any handgunner had ever handled before. Bullets range from 180 grains at 1,600 feet per second to 300 grains at 1,200 feet per second. This was a true powerhouse that ushered in a new era of handgun hunting and the competition of silhouette shooting. This cartridge changed the handgun world and opened the doors for every big bore behemoth that followed. The pure versatility of this round is something to behold. Even the mild loads are still scorchers that annihilate targets. You can hunt just about anything that walks the earth and keep yourself safe from anything as well. You can also shoot incredible distances accurately. And if you're not a fan of shooting it in a revolver like my wife Ashley, the Desert Eagle allows semi-auto range time fun. And the LAR Grizzly Mark IV even chambered it. I love this cartridge because it can do 90% of what a big bore Magnum needs to do without breaking a sweat, and the other 10% can be done with the cartridge getting a little extra spice. So why, with praise like that, did I put it at number 2? Well, a firearm that can safely handle that power is not cheap, and they can require more maintenance. And ammo is also expensive, so range time can quickly become cost prohibitive. And unlike smaller rounds, the 44 Magnum will eventually fatigue a shooter's hands. The recoil of it may be small compared to a 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum, but it is still quite strong. And depending on the shooter, that can limit you to 50 rounds or maybe even 20. But when it comes to shooting a powerful revolver that always brings enough energy, the 44 Magnum is the GOAT. Number 1. Drum roll, please. The 45 ACP. Yeah, boo me all you want. But seriously, I still think this is the greatest big bore cartridge of all time. When people think of big bore handguns, the caliber of 45 is the first place their mind usually goes. And with the 45 Colt being past its proverbial prime, the 45 ACP is the 45 for the market today, and it has been for quite some time. The cartridge was devised by one of the greatest gun designers in history, John Browning, all the way back in 1905 for the new military semi-automatic sidearm he was building. Since then, the 38 Super had its 15 minutes, the 357 SIG came and is arguably on its way out, the 45 Gap inspired us to smirk, and now the 40 Smith & Wesson is being dumped like the hot chick in high school who suddenly contracted genital herpes. No one wants to touch her no more. But the 45 ACP is still here. Moreover, it's not going anywhere. Browning had to have got something right when the cartridge can stand the test of time for over 117 years. Only the 9mm Parabellum has stuck around longer with the same kind of popularity. And there's a good reason for that. It does what it claims to do. It's a big chunk of lead moving at modest velocities that can hit hard and stop a target. Its performance as a self-defense round is legendary. Even with ball ammo, a 45 ACP can get the job done. And there are some folks that have even hunted with it. It's not my first choice, but with a plus P loading and a good shot, this cartridge can absolutely take game. But one of the reasons I really love this cartridge is it's just so much fun to shoot at the range. It's accurate, and despite having a bigger push than a smaller cartridge, the muzzle rise is not very strong. I personally shoot more accurately with the 45 ACP than with the 9mm Parabellum. And while a prolonged trip to the range will fatigue my hands, it takes a while and allows me to shoot a big bore for longer. You gotta love that. And there are a ton of options for shooting this round. You can even buy revolvers in it, both in double and single action. Now, of course, it has its downsides. Ammo's more expensive than the smaller 9mm, and the lower pressure of the round tends to burn a little less cleanly, making gun cleaning a very dirty affair. And if you have small hands, it can be a frustrating time finding a gun that suits you, as the larger caliber usually dictates a larger grip. But with its legacy firmly in place, its future all but assured, and the vast positives the cartridge brings to the table, the 45 ACP is the best big bore handgun cartridge out there. So let's recap that list before we go. Number 5, the 480 Ruger. More power than a 44 Magnum without monstrous recoil. Number 4, the 10mm Auto, when you need serious versatile semi-auto power. Number 3, the 500 JRH, the best overall 50 caliber handgun cartridge. Number 2, the 44 Magnum, the quintessential big bore Magnum handgun that can do just about anything. And number 1, the 45 ACP, kicking ass for over a century. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the reevaluation of this list. Do you agree, or do you think there are better big bore cartridges than these? Let us know in the comments section below, and please share with us what big bore cartridges you think are the best of the best. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and if you didn't enjoy it, thank you for watching and giving our content a chance. And remember, go big bore or go home. There really is very little you can't do, and can't do well, I might add, with a good 10mm pistol.